the thing that happened at the debate with Tulsi was that she made note of the fact that the New York Times printed scurrilous statements about her being a Russian agent.
New York Times and CNN have also smeared veterans like myself for calling for an end to this regime change war. Just 2 days ago, the New York Times put out an article saying that I'm a Russian asset and an Assad apologist and all these different smears. This morning, a CNN commentator said on national television that I'm an asset of Russia. Completely despicable.
These are ridiculous things. She met with Assad, as she properly should, as a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. She has met with Russians as part of her duties on the Foreign Relations Committee. So this is a particular device of the military-industrial complex to try and sabotage her campaign. But they do it on the pages of the New York Times. And if you saw the New York Times shortly after the debate, they had a major spread about Pete Buttigieg and trying to puff up his military experiences, which is ridiculous. You know, he was in for 6 months in Afghanistan and made several trips out of the wire driving down the road, and that was his experience or the threat on his life and they tried to build it up. It's ridiculous. He was an intelligence analyst inside the compound of Americans. There's nothing for him to analyze. I've been in intelligence, know it well, and know how complacent, and there's nothing to it in his military service. Now you compare that with Tulsi, where she did 2 tours in Vietnam, and so
Iraq.
Pardon me?
Iraq.
Iraq, not Vietnam. You're right. My age shows sometimes. So I think Tulsi would be ideal, but of course, what she is she's a major threat to the military-industrial complex, and Buttigieg is an empty shirt who is a puppet of the military-industrial complex. And so really the most pacifistic person we have running for office is Tulsi, and the most warlike we have is Buttigieg, because he's going to follow along exactly what the military-industrial complex wants to put forward.
I did just want to talk for a minute about the whole Russia Tulsi Gabbard thing, because actually just a short while before we started recording this interview, news broke about Hillary Clinton recently appearing on the Campaign HQ podcast and seemingly making an accusation about Tulsi Gabbard being connected to Russia. I don't know if maybe you've heard about this yet.
No, I haven't.
So apparently Hillary Clinton said that the Russians already have their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third party candidate, which is actually funny because last time Tulsi Gabbard was on my show, she specifically said that she would not run as a third party candidate. So I don't know where Hillary Clinton is getting this from.
I'm not going to run as a third party candidate or as an independent. The reality is that our country has a two-party system right now, and frankly, it's not viable to think that a third-party candidate in this day and age will be able to be successful in that election. My energy is I've always been a Democrat, and my energy is focused on being the Democratic nominee, being in that position where I can be the president and leading our party towards bringing about the kinds of reforms that it needs, rooting out the corruption within our own party, and making it so that the Democratic Party truly represents the interests of the people and our planet.
But Hillary Clinton said, quote, "She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. And that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not because she's also a Russian asset." So apparently Hillary Clinton is actually going all the way saying that Jill Stein is a Russian asset, which is just amazing to me. I don't know if you have a take on that.
It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And of course, for Hillary Clinton, who's a flawed candidate, the reason why we have Trump today is because Hillary conspired with Obama and Wasserman Schultz to deny Bernie Sanders the legitimate nomination when the polls showed that he could beat Trump. And so now you get the same approach, which is the warmongering wing of the Democratic Party, which is trying to dismiss Tulsi Gabbard because she has more credibility in talking about peace and talking about proper use of the military than any other candidate literally in American history. And so that now the gang up by the New York Times, the Democratic leadership, and now the Clinton wing of the Democratic Party trying to discredit Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think it'll wash, because as people experience watching Tulsi in her statements, they'll recognize that, calling a major member of the Congress, she's on armed services, she's on foreign relations, and calling her an asset of Russia is grossly ridiculous and really reflects upon those who make the charge. And so all I can say about, I'm not surprised about Hillary Clinton, because I've always had a really good fix on the type of person that she is, and her husband also. But here again, who does the military-industrial complex fear the most? It's Tulsi Gabbard. And that's the reason why they're piling up on her, trying to discredit her with the American people. I don't think it'll wash. What we need to do is to get more visibility of Tulsi so people could really see her as a real person and as a potential leader for the nation.
Well, there's a couple of things that are even more ironic about it. One of them is that if we had not interfered in that 1996 election, Vladimir Putin probably wouldn't have become president, because it was the re-election of Yeltsin that directly led to Putin coming to power. And additionally, if you go back to the previous U.S. election in 2012, a main line of attack by the Democrats against Mitt Romney was that he was bringing back the foreign policy of the 1980s and that he was out of step.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not al-Qaeda, you said Russia. And the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. But, Governor, when it comes to our foreign policy, you seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s.
This partisanship really just seems to have just driven people crazy, where they have no sort of understanding of history or even logic at this point.
Well, first off, let me compliment you. I think you have a very good knowledge of what's going on and what has been going on. And when you pursue that to the present, it's not surprising that the Democrats are falling back on their old shtick of that we got a world war that's possible and necessary, and it makes no sense at all. There's no reason why we can't have world peace. It's that we have a party who's supposed to be liberal and fair and for the average American, when in point of fact, the same party wants to take that average American and throw him into war and become fodder for the cannons. It's very sad. It's very sad because it confuses the rational thinking in a democracy, where the people are misinformed about the threats that they have and are not informed about what really is the threat, which is to our educational system, our health system, and our infrastructure. Repeat again what Tulsi just said.
She says, "Great, thank you, Hillary Clinton. You, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption and personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long, have finally come out from behind the curtain. From the day I announced my candidacy, there has been a concerted campaign to destroy my reputation. We wondered who was behind it and why. Now we know it was always you, through your proxies and powerful allies in the corporate media and the war machine, afraid of the threat I pose. It's now clear that this primary has been between you and me. Don't cowardly hide behind your proxies. Join the race directly." Wow, I cannot believe she tweeted that. That is an amazing quote.
Oh, well, Tulsi's a fighter. I'll tell you, she takes no prisoners, and that's to her credit. That's to her credit, because most politicians are cowards. They're definitely cowards. That's why they take these positions that don't mean anything, because they're cowards. They don't want to take a position. And that's one of the unfortunate natures of politicians.